Thank you. And this is actually my first post-layoff presentation now that I'm Strategia, now no longer with my former employer, who will go nameless. So some of you know me as the most connected executive in the connected car industry. So that is my area of expertise, is car connectivity. And aside from all these other wonderful accolades, to which I will be adding next week, president of the Mobile Satellite Users Association. It'll be fun to be president. I'm also a first-class troublemaker, as some of you in this audience will tell you. But I like to say also I'm a bit of a truth teller. So cue Barbra Streisand, right? Remember these days? What dashboards used to look like. It was so simple then. And we've seen a lot of very interesting displays in cars from some of the presenters before, these pillar-to-pillar kind of displays, but this has been more my experience. So in the upper left, that's my wife's Hyundai Ioniq 5. You get in the car, and this is the screen that's on, on the center stack, and there's another display behind the steering wheel. But why did they decide to do that? And then this is my BMW. Now, I'm not going to trouble you with my tale of woe after I just had lunch with the gentleman from ST Micro about I don't have an HD radio or Sirius XM chip in my BMW X3 2022, which I didn't discover until I had the car for 2 months. So here I am, a radio industry, fancy myself an expert, and I don't have the latest technology in my very expensive, yet to be paid for car. But this is one screen you can see. There was another one that's even more useless than this one. But I kept jumping into CarPlay, so I just took this one. And then if you've ever rented a Toyota, almost anywhere in the world, you're going to get this screen, Experience Drive Connect. What? So this is my concern, and this is what we're looking at in the automotive industry. So car makers are lost, they're overwhelmed, they need our help, okay? Not to be confused with the Chinese, but more on that later. They have a whole different relationship with radio, of course. So it all starts with connectivity. So I think it's important to go back in time and understand how we got here in the first place. We connected cars for safety. OnStar was put in there for automatic crash response. But we did so, and this very much happened in Europe with the eCall mandate, with the idea, they tempted everybody to get excited that we'd have added value services over the connectivity device in the car. And then we got excited about monetizing data, vehicle diagnostics and service scheduling, selling Wi-Fi, streaming content, and subscriptions. So we're going to make money, billions of dollars, right? Okay. I think it's worth noting, by the way, seriously, GM is generating 9 figures in revenue from Wi-Fi in the car. So they are monetizing that. But then EVs came on the scene. So I'm very fond of talking about the fact that 10 to 15% of revenue in the automotive industry comes in the aftermarket. In other words, after you drive the car off the lot, so repairing and replacing parts, et cetera. But 80% of profit comes from the aftermarket. But that's for internal combustion engine vehicles. EVs, there is no aftermarket. I can tell you after about almost 2 years of ownership of the Hyundai Ioniq 5, see you later. I mean, I'm never going to see that dealer again. I go in there. They did 2 software updates last time I was there. There's no work that needs to be done on that car at all. This is a major sea change in the industry. This is why car makers are so focused on trying to extract revenue from connectivity, because the one thing that's working in their favor is this software-defined vehicle you've heard so much about. Car makers can't just sell a car and forget it. They need to maintain connection with that car, with that customer, because they're going to have to update the software. And hopefully they'll be able to do it over the air, not like my Hyundai where I'm driving it to the dealership for a software update. We're not quite there yet, but that's where we have to go. A long-term relationship with the car and monetizing that connection. So safety has changed. So safety, many of you are probably familiar with our version of a safety agency, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Their whole focal point for many years, decades and decades, and they saved hundreds of thousands of lives to show for this, was surviving crashes. Well, that's completely out of the conversation now. No more airbags, anti-lock brakes, and seat belts. Now we're trying to avoid crashes. So that's going to put another demand on that in-dash screen. Okay, what's the information that's going to the driver? Alerts about obstacles in the road ahead, and lane keeping assistance, blind spot detection. I'm driving a BMW, but I'm not allowed to drive my BMW like a BMW driver. One of my wise guy sons turned on the lane keeping, so now I have to signal all my lane changes. So I do think it's antithetical, but I'm a safer driver for it, so it's a good thing. But that's going to put a demand on what's going on in that center screen. Also, speed limits, traffic lights, construction, wrong way driver alerts, contextual marketing and advertising. Oh yes, oh yes. We're talking about a very different advertising experience in the car, and automakers desperately want to own this. They also want to enable e-commerce from the vehicle, and they want it to be an interactive experience. And we can do that. It wasn't so long after ChatGPT came on the scene that Stellantis, through an over-the-air software update in Europe, had ChatGPT in some of their cars. Now, it required some tuning because we don't want goofy stuff going on in the car and hallucinations and things. But automakers want to take ownership of that connection. So this is sort of a deep inside baseball proposition. So they don't just want to have a deal with the local wireless carrier. They are now moving to own the SIM device so that they can get the best connection and the cheapest connection at all times, because you can't always rely on one single carrier to get a connection in the car. This also means they're saying, you know what, that projected smartphone stuff, we've had it up to here with that stuff. That's going out the window. We are going to do everything over the embedded device in the car, which is why we're having this streaming conversation. And we're getting into a platform conversation. So car makers are needing to figure out, okay, what can we do and what can't we do? You know, and do we want to enable this, you know, multi-screen lifestyle proposition where someone lives in, you know, this cloud, the Apple cloud or the Google cloud or whatever cloud, and just bring it into the car? Or are we going to have our own cloud? Because the car is a unique listening environment. But we do want to look at contextual marketing, recommendation engines, content management in the car. That's a different consumption environment, and so you're going to have different kinds of algorithms and tools in the car, and car makers want to own that proposition. And they're trying to put it together. And it's an immense struggle, but they're putting the infrastructure in the car. They're putting Ethernet in the car. They're putting very powerful processors in the car. They're putting more storage in the vehicle, which is all why cars are getting so much more expensive. And of course, they're putting sensors all around the car and in the car. So, you know, talk about surveillance marketing. The car is going to be surveillance marketing on steroids, which is why we're getting privacy violations and challenges. So we're going to have to come to grips as an industry with all this stuff I just talked about, plus consent management and privacy, okay? And video. So we had one reference already today to autonomous driving, and as some of you may already know, and some of you may not, so many of you, I'm sure, have heard of GM Super Cruise. So GM Super Cruise, if you're paying attention to the road, you can take your hands off the wheel. Well, Mercedes has launched level 3, so that's level 2, or level 2 plus, we call it in the industry. Level 3 is you can take your hands and your eyes off the road and do whatever you want behind the wheel. This is Mercedes has introduced level 3, and they've introduced it at 60 miles an hour, I think, or maybe it's 40 miles an hour. And I'm told, this from, I was at the Autotech event last week with Lawrence, that they're going to take it, you know, up to higher and higher speeds within a year or two. And so this is, some precincts within the automotive industry are thinking we're going to be doing goofy stuff in the front seat of the car, watching videos or having a conference call or engaging in social media while being ready to take control when the car says, hey, I can't handle this situation, you got to take the wheel. So video is absolutely coming into the car. It's not just in the back seat. It's being demonstrated and shown in the front seat. Now people will tell you, oh, that's just when you're charging the car. Yeah, right. It's going to be when you're driving the car very soon, within years, okay? So that's more competition for that real estate in the dashboard. And where's radio going to fit into all this? Because it still is the safest alternative in the car. So automakers are talking about this subscriptions. So we have to have this life cycle relationship with the customer. And so cars themselves, we need to maintain that software. It's an absolute existential crisis for the industry. Now, having clever content management in the car is, I think, a great opportunity for a subscription-based relationship. And I think there are plenty of consumers who would love to have all their Google Cloud resources in the car, like navigation, like Google Voice, like music, maybe Amazon Prime, maybe that's your platform of choice. And I think people would be willing to pay a subscription for that. The automakers are trying to figure that out. They haven't quite yet, but that's where we're headed, okay? And in-vehicle payments. There must be at least a dozen different companies trying to enable in-vehicle payments for fuel, for tolling, for parking, for groceries, for food, restaurant pickup, for curbside pickup. So again, if you've seen the press events that the automakers have had, they're talking about billions of dollars in revenue. So they're looking to create the infrastructure to create these business propositions and marketing opportunities. So to the extent to which the broadcast industry can facilitate that, I think there's something called attribution. You know, if you can reach that person with a powerful message and they're in a vehicle that can engage in commerce in real time, I think that's an opportunity for this industry, okay? So I'd be looking at platforms that can enable that kind of interaction and prove that out, as well as sponsored content, sponsored features, pay for subscription fee. Well, I already talked about this, the autonomous driving phenomenon. Video is here and it's going wide. So you did see some of the pillar-to-pillar displays. And another key thing that this industry can bring to the party is that metadata conversation we keep talking about over and over and over again. But yes, you've got much more real estate. Make it beautiful. Make radio a visual experience, much more engaging. And maybe there's information about the artist or concerts that are coming up. Whatever it is, you know, take it to that level because there's all that real estate. The automakers don't know what to do with all that space. They just think they have to do something, you know, to make it look interesting and fun. We have content that can bring that to life and help sell cars. So I was going to say three screens, 4 screen, we all scream. So 3 Screen Solutions is the first company I wanted to talk about. They were showing video in the car, again, ostensibly while you're charging. But this is a platform, and they're talking about a 5-screen world, and the car is just one of those screens. But I have a kind of a bone to pick with this multi-screen vision, because that's the vision of the advertisers. Automakers don't want to hear about those other screens. They're only concerned about the screen in the car. So I don't think we score points with automakers talking about 5-screen solutions. And there's 4-screen. So 4-screen is a marketing platform in the vehicle. It's a German startup. They have several engagements. They've had a lot of good uptake, and they're trying to enable that vehicle-based commerce experience in the car, and take advantage of that unique real estate in the dashboard. Again, we all scream, go big or go home. So enable this, capitalize on this, give the automakers tools, okay, to bring this crazy screen, to make this huge screen make sense. You know, why do I have all this real estate in front of me? Show why. Compelling solutions with the content that this industry has. So the industry is trying to monetize connectivity, own the customer experience, redefine the in-dash experience with ingredients such as sensor inputs, AI, access to cloud resources, and another bone to pick. So I backed out of my driveway 2 weeks ago, and I backed out into an Amazon van parked across the street. Now my car has, I don't even want to get into how many sensors are around my car, and the surround view, and the backup camera. That should never have happened. But anyway, all cars have all these sensors, and so again, that's another piece of competition for that dashboard real estate, okay? But brand definition, value creation, content management, recommendation engines, new advertising paradigm, new measurement tools, a new kind of search-based foundation in the car. Search in the car is something completely different than search everywhere else. I think I've already told you what you can do, so I'm not going to go through this slide. But I'm going to join the panel, and I'll be answering a question or two from Gereon. And those are my thoughts for you today. Thank you for your attention.
My love story is, it was the last day of the Bundesliga game day, and it was about which team goes into the second league or not. I couldn't watch it on TV, so I was listening to the radio, and they had a conference with all the games simultaneously. Goosebumps, what an experience, right? So emotional, so much passion behind it, much better than TV. That's my personal love story of radio. You probably all remember this. This is how we probably had our first car with a very simplistic HMI. It's just basically the frequency. The reality today looks different. This is a modern UI in the car. And, just looking at it, you have the screens that Roger spoke about. But what's happening actually inside the cars? And this is a reality that we need to face and that we need to talk about. We have radio. Radio is still the most listened source in the car, but we have the streaming providers, the Spotify, the Amazon, we have podcasts. We have video streaming in the car. We just launched this platform together with BMW. So this is a reality that's in the field today. And then we have games. Games are in the vehicles today with Audi, with Tesla, with Mercedes, and many others. So all of this in the car today, right? This is the reality that we're facing. And given all these technology advancements, and that's a question for you both, is what is radio? Do you want to go first?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Gereon. I think radio, it's different things to everyone. To some people, it's a companionship. It's something you have when you go on a long journey. It's crucial for your journey at that time. It offers you your news. It's a big source of your news. It's a source of traffic information. It's so many different things. I think most of all, it's a form of entertainment as well for people. And it also gives you a huge choice of content. And I think you'll see it across all broadcasters, and especially BBC, our role is to provide as much choice as possible to as wide a range of audience as possible. And I think it's great at the moment with broadcast radio. DAB, is doing incredibly well. We've seen a huge increase of choice of stations in the UK with, I say from the commercial side, not the BBC, where they've gone from 11 national stations just 3 years ago to over 40. And that's in the space of such a short time. And that's because the audience want it, and they love those stations, and they're doing incredibly well. But I think we also all have recognised that radio, as we know it, the listening habits are changing. I think the environment is changing, because people now want to listen when they want, where they want, and they want more on demand, and they want podcasts as well. So radio's here for a long, long time, but I think we've got to cater for those other needs.
Okay. Anything you want to add, Roger?
I often hear speakers say this, but and it doesn't, it sounds a little bit like an exaggeration, but I think it's true that radio, there's an intimacy with radio. You're quite often you're alone in the car, and it's anticipating the information needs that you have. When we survey, when I used to survey with my previous employer, who shall remain nameless, people said they wanted traffic, weather, and parking information. Now, you're not going to get parking information over the radio, but you are going to get traffic and weather. And when you get that kind of information, it's almost as if that tool is reading your mind. It's anticipating your needs, and what it is delivering that location-relevant solution. It's location-relevant solution that automakers are trying to recreate in the cloud with all these powerful processors and cloud resources. The radio kind of makes it look easy, actually. But it's delivering relevant information to you all day long.
Okay. Let's go further and have a look. You spoke about the challenges, so I'm not going into this, but we solved them. We have built an independent media platform, which is called DTS AutoStage, where we're bringing the broadcast industry, the content providers, the car makers all together, and we do this globally. And we have launched our solution with 12 OEMs. We have 7.5 million vehicles on the road now, more to come. So what we have done is we have stood up this big ecosystem, and the question to you really is, how much should radio try to shape or mandate the place in the car, or should they more adopt, actually? So what is your opinion on this? Maybe let's look on the playbook and everything we have discussed before.
Well, from my perspective, radio should be, at the core. The challenge that we have, and I was kind of needling Thomas a little bit earlier, is to see things through the eyes and through the thinking of the automakers, understanding all these other distractions and challenges that they're trying to confront, and bring them additional resources, because I don't think that the typical automaker is really completely aware of the full implications of a digitalized broadcast platform, the searchability, the content management implications. Some clearly have. I think you're showing Mercedes here. That's an amazing experience that they put together, but they put it together after they were given the tools to try to do different things, and you can integrate radio into other applications and help solve those problems that I was talking about, which is a better customer engagement and potentially commerce. I'm not a huge fan, but we need to generate revenue from that box.
Yeah. You want to add something from the point of the BBC, Lindsay?
I think in terms of mandating, I think we all recognise we were very successful when we got DAB Plus mandated in cars that came with the radio tuner, and that I think was a result of the collaboration between broadcasters, regulators, EBU, WorldDAB, government, etc. And I think one of the challenges we've got now going forward is the risk of some car manufacturers deciding not to have radio in the car anymore. And I think that's something that we should all be very concerned about. And again, for us to, there's a window now for us to go back to the EU. That legislation is going to be updated. This is a time now for us, again, to all work together and explain why radio is so important to be in the car. And it's for all the reasons that everyone knows. But it's crucial we have that. I mean, recently in the UK, we've just gone through the media bill, and we had some legislation approved, which basically means that all UK radios, or public radios, broadcasting stations, community radio and commercial radio will all have a place and be accessible on voice-connected devices, basically smart speakers. And there's a rule that there'll be no pre-ad rolls, and that if any voice command you make, you will actually get the station you've asked for. So in the case of something like Times Radio in the UK, when it launched, it asked for Times Radio, and you've got Times Radio in Malawi. Yeah. So, you've got all of that. And then also broadcasters can decide themselves where they want their station to come from. So if it's, say, BBC Radio 2, it would go from BBC Sounds. I'm not saying we can do that at the moment, and that's going to be across in-car and everything. We'd like that to be in-car. But I think there's still a lot we can do. But I think collaboration is the key thing. And I think, the work that Thomas is doing with EBU and Playbook is actually the start of a lot of that as well. Yeah.
A matter of time, I want to show the next slide is where we actually enhancing the radio experience, because I think in all the discussion that we had is radio is up for a challenge, and it needs to be on pair with the streaming services like the Spotify, the Apples, and the other content that's coming into the car. What we're showing here is a Mercedes which is running now for years on the street, and what we have done is we have introduced lyrics to the vehicle. So if you're interested and you're listening to your favorite song in the vehicle, you actually can push the button and can take a look at the lyrics along with it. I think that's very exciting, but that's what people expect. If you look at the studies about Gen Z, they want to have all the content on the fingertip. They want to have the same experience that they have on the mobile devices. Lyrics is something that totally stands out. And think about your radio station. That's how you create attachment, right? It is an experience that you want to have because you're providing more than you do today, but you bring it up to a true digital experience.
I did want to add something else. There's a reason why radio should be at the core of a typical automaker's thinking when it comes to delivering content to the vehicle, because one of the reasons why the automakers are looking to own that connectivity is because they are completely frustrated with the failures, the cellular network failures that have been occurring. There was just another one from AT&T last week, and AT&T is the dominant provider of cellular connectivity to automakers in the US, and every one of them is looking at just having complete carrier independence because they can't depend on the carriers, but you can depend on the radio signal.
Yeah, very important point, and that's why we believe, first of all, radio should be at the center of the discovery and the experience process, and radio should come over the air and then supplemented with IP, the hybrid radio implementation, right? That's what we think is the biggest value. I want to go through a few slides. The platform that we have built out is free for broadcasters. They can join our platform. They can make the metadata available. In return, we're providing a lot of analytics. We don't have so much time. I want to show one slide for the audience, which I think is interesting. And then I think we're wrapping up the session. We're providing in-car listening statistic backs to the broadcasters for free, right? That doesn't cost anything anyone. So what we have here is a multiplex scenario, and this is real, right? This is measurement out of the vehicle that we can provide from one radio station, and you have different color shadings as an overlay on the map. And you actually see on the yellow that you have a 6% listening of FM, then you have two multiplexes, one has a listening of 65 and the other one of 29%. This is important for the broadcasters. That's a lot of information you can use in order to make decision, right? You may think of, I can switch off the FM transmitter. Well, you may lose 6% of your listening ship. Well, your decision whether that's important for you or not, right? Or if you do infrastructure planning, you can get an idea where you need to put a different transmitter. So that's a kind of powerful data that's actually provided back to the broadcast industry. And why we do this is because we believe in radio, right? And I said radio is in your DNA, and if we say that, actually we mean it. With that, I think I want to wrap up the session, and the big question for you is, what does the future hold for radio? I think your viewpoint is going to be very interesting. Lindsay, you want to go first?
Yeah. I think radio's going to be around for a long, long, long time, okay? But I think what we'll be talking about in a few years is more about audio. And I think that's the way things are changing. We can't just have live radio listening in the car. We've got to have more than that. So I think it will be a mix of live radio, on demand, and podcasts. And I think with the linkage, which I think Nick will probably talk about later with radio DNS, linking broadcast to IP, that allows us as a broadcaster to provide a lot more content, and it sort of enriches the listener's experience as well. So I think they'll have an all-round experience in the car, which they're probably not getting at the moment unless they plug in a mobile phone, and otherwise doing it through the car in a safe way.
Okay.
I think the kind of experience that you're seeing in a Mercedes, it opens an entirely new door for the broadcast industry, increases discoverability of content, increases customer engagement, and opens the door to a better view towards attribution of, between, an advertisement that happened and a behavior that occurred. Because typically when people are in the car, they're going somewhere to conduct some business. What a great time to be communicating with them in a non-distracting fashion. But the discoverability, the searchability, and making radio a visual realm is entirely happening in the car.
Yeah. Thank you for your insights. I want to wrap it up and say, you as broadcasters, don't just put blinkers on and say, well, the world is in good shape. I think there's a lot of challenges to the radio industry. I think, but if we team up as a team, there's a lot of things we can achieve, and we can keep radio relevant in the discovery process, in the experience, and maintaining the laid-back experience, because that's really what radio is about. It's a laid-back experience. So that's the end of the session. If you have any questions, come to Roger, to Lindsay, or to myself. We're happy to answer.
As you know, more or less, this is how cars currently look like. We have everything, the broadcast radios, IP radio, and all other sources. On the general broadcast situation, I think it was said this day often enough, the broadcast coverage and station offering and so on improved a lot. And the responsible guys already told that to you. But with that improved broadcast situation, we also have the risk of getting more complaints by the customers, because more and more are also listening to DAB. And that is why I'm more or less here today. It may sound like a little bit yelling on the broadcasters, but at least it is to prevent that we all fall together into the same or similar pitfalls, to have at least the most important topic, really good user experience on the broadcast radio. And again, it is really not to finger point on something. It is on giving the chance that we do not do it again. The first topic is bad audio quality. When I remember DAB as the one of the best things DAB brings is the very good CD nearly quality. But some stations are using, why ever, a recording of FM and provide them via streaming to the multiplexers so that you have really, really bad audio quality on DAB. And also, they don't look on some content that they are absolutely driving them into a clipping situation. That at least will annoy the customers. Yeah, I think I already told that previously, slideshows, they are really nice on many stations, but still we have a huge amount of stations who are just providing the station logo over the slideshow. And that doesn't make any sense. And customers know now about it, and it is well implemented even in vehicles. So they are really annoyed on that. The same is with radio text, respectively dynamic label plus, that providing things like coder location or other useless things like frequency, SID or whatever, it doesn't make any sense. And yeah, it is not giving the user experience the customer wants. Inconsistent service linking, that is one of the specifics when you are driving on a single frequency network and not on a single frequency network, sorry, that you have the opportunity to link from one ensemble to the other ensemble. But in this case, you're driving in one direction, you're getting the newer ensemble, but if you're driving back, you're not getting that. So it is just a one-way direction. That at least confuses the customers and will drive many complaints. Then stations with no content. Some are intentionally no content because they are just used for special events or so. And but this, when you're on these special events and there is data content but no audio content, all customers complaining it because I'm not hearing anything. So fill them, if you provide it, fill them at least with some background music or whatever and the additional data. And in addition, unintentional missing audio content. We have stations seen they are providing data, but no audio is on that variant in these ensemble. Yeah, regionalization, I think it's always a problem with better known as soft links. It is confusing if the behavior is much different than on FM. Respectively, many stations are not regionalization using that functionality, but on FM, and during that period, the content for the user is continuously changing. So worst case, you're listening to church music. Next time you're getting the pig prices from Cologne City. And of course, that will not reach the, I think for most broadcasters, important part, it will be maybe not provide the right advertisement for the right region. Yeah, station name writings. Many stations are still doing it that depending on the multiplex where they are, they have different writing types. Sometimes all characters are in capital, some are, it is continuously changing, including the name. And that confuses at least the customer. The same or very similar on that is that the station name stays, but depending on which multiplex you are and you're driving in the border area, you are getting continuously changes on the audio content, similar to what is with the regional stations. The next is the signalization of traffic announcements. That is very annoying for customers when a station is signalizing traffic announcement capability, but it is never providing a traffic announcement. And even worse, stations are out. They are not. They are signalizing TAs, but they are not providing it. Even the FM is providing the traffic announcement. So in this case, this traffic announcement will not appear because the in advanced running FM will never become active. And that is very annoying that the customer sees it is provided, but they never get something. Other announcements, Poland, for example, requires to support other announcements, and we have, I think, 16, but none of the stations I know so far are using others than traffic. And that is especially on stations who are using similar possibilities like news, for example, in FM, and that will confuse the customers as well. Yeah, one specific, very new on the chipsets. There's a delay due to the more used and faster done providing of the FIG packages, that we have a delay on that, but we are working on it, and so far the industry has a workaround. Respectively, the chip supplier will do the update, and it is investigated. Yeah, the inconsistent regionalization is that it is regionalized, including soft links and all that stuff, but that do not match with the behavior in FM, and in some circumstances it is totally going in the wrong direction, that you still have all the changing content. Just for interest, we also have that still on FM, so it is also not, even it is done very long time for now, but yeah. Okay, I will not keep on that. Yeah, the consequences out of that, at least it will cost time and money, because we have to do our hotlines or improve even the capacity on that. So that's one. The broadcaster might lose the listener, because of when I'm annoyed by a station and I have a good offering nowadays, I will change to a station who has maybe similar content, but not that pitfalls. And at least broadcasters will lose advertising contracts, because when I'm not getting the right advertisement to the right region, that may guide the guys to change to another station. Yeah, coming to the future, I think it was many times said, and already today, that yes, broadcast radio will stay as a part of the in-vehicle entertainment systems. DAB, I heard it today sometimes, but not always, is in most countries a standard feature, at least due to market regulations. Online services, pure online streaming or even hybrid radio, yes, they will come, but these are just to improve or have an alternative to broadcast radio, but not for replacing it. Yeah, and then the last topic, data services, which are possible to provide by the broadcasters, should be used, because they are more or less all implemented by the car manufacturers, but not implemented by the broadcasters, and that will give the opportunity or a better way to be competitive against the streaming alternatives, where you have all the informations more or less available in a good visual. And that's all from my side.
Hi, Frank. You talked about a lot of complaints, and I'm wondering, altogether, what kind of an implication are we talking about in terms of an impact on Ford in trying to, mitigate or respond to these, and exactly where are they coming from? Are these coming from consumers, or where are they all coming from?
They are coming from the consumers, so via the hotlines, and by test drives around Europe, they also experienced. So all what was shown today, I personally saw in the field.
And what recourse do you have to resolve these issues?
On some topics, for example, with the 3 seconds, we of course talk to the suppliers and fix them on our side, but most are on broadcaster side, and we are getting in contact or try to get in contact with the broadcasters to get that fixed. If we reach them.
Is there any kind of coordination going on to try to mitigate this across the industry? I think I know the answer, but curious what you have to say.
Sadly said, no. It was several times tried to have something like a global error database, let's call it that way, but it was never established. At least every car manufacturer, also broadcaster having issues with our products, has to get in contact via WorldDAB or directly to fix that issue, if there's a fix possible, quickly one.
Another quick plug for the automotive workshops before I hand over to Gregor Putsch from Cariad.
Yeah, thank you. That was the last bit I also want to emphasize on. Yeah, WorldDAB is really the platform for that, because I also work for the car industry, so it's really hard to know every broadcaster, but WorldDAB is like the only possibility to reach out, because either it's Becky or someone else of the project office, they might know someone who knows someone to get this done, because else it's thousands of stations, you can't reach them. But through WorldDAB, it's really possible to reach like the broadcasting networks. So usually it's like bigger networks they organize in. So it's possible, but still tedious work to solve their problems.
Yeah, just maybe as an addition to that, Gregor, not only the big networks would be interesting, I think even the bigger organizations for the private broadcasters, there should be at least one contact to help you on their members.
Great. Okay.
Like VNet in Germany.
Brilliant. We've got time for one more question if there's a question from the audience. If not, I have a question for Frank directly. Frank, you've shown us all of the implementations that are happening in vehicles today, and most of those vehicles are using their own embedded systems. Do you see a future for broadcast radio as vehicles move into using operating systems like Android Automotive and Apple CarPlay? Will that be something you'll be looking to pursue, to keep broadcast radio in vehicles even as they transition to those operating systems?
I don't see that there's a must to change anything to just follow the apps in Android Automotive, for example. We will keep the own app radio, which is then possibly still split in FM or and DAB, but at least, or the target is to have one radio button still available beside all the other apps.
Great. That's good to hear. Nice future for radio in Ford vehicles. Thank you very much, Frank, for joining us remotely, and apologies for the small technical glitches along the way. And thank you for your questions.
Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the day. And I will following the rest of the presentations. Thank you.